All right, greetings. I'm here today with Dr. Richard LaRouche, an associate professor of public health at the University of Lethbridge in Alberta, Canada. He is one of the co-authors of a study entitled Correlates of Outdoor Time in Schoolchildren from Families Speaking Non-Official Languages at Home, a multi-site Canadian study. Now, as the title of the article suggests, you were interested in studying children who spoke languages other than English or French in the home. So I take it these children were either first or second generation immigrants to Canada. Is that correct?
I would think many of these children were first-generation immigrants, but it's possible that some of them have been living in Canada for longer periods of time. Most of the participants that reported speaking a a non-official language at home were at the Vancouver sites where there are big linguistic minorities. And so it's possible that some of them could have been third or fourth generation immigrants, for example.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the context for your study? That is, why were you interested in studying how much time per day these children spent out of being active out of doors, and why is this an important topic?
Yes, so we know from previous literature reviews that children are more active when they are outdoors, and children who spend more time outdoors are more physically active overall. The consistency of the evidence is pretty clear, and this came out when we published a few years ago a paper looking at correlates of physical activity in our larger sample that included those speaking English, French at home, as well as those speaking non-official languages. But we also found that children speaking non-official languages at home were less physically active. They had less independent mobility, so the freedom to move around in the public space without adult supervision, and they also spent less time outdoors. And so I had a master's student who was interested in those findings and wanted to dig into that a little bit further. So there came the idea for this big paper looking at the specific correlates of outdoor time in this subpopulation.
Okay. And can you tell us about some of the interesting results from your study?
Yes, so in general, we found that the correlates of outdoor time in this subpopulation span the social ecological model. So that includes characteristics of the child, characteristics of the parents, community, weather, and so on. And we also found that the correlates were different between boys and girls. So for girls, it was mostly parental characteristics that emerged as being significant. So things like parental education, parental perceptions about safety and social cohesion in the neighborhood. Versus for the boys, there was a greater diversity of correlates. So boys with higher independent mobility spend more time outdoors. We also found association with weather, with the type of environment in which they live. So a broader range of correlates in boys compared to girls in this population.
Okay, interesting. So great. What are some of the implications of this research for future research and for physical activity interventions?
Yeah, so there's a few implications. So it looks like the factors at different levels of social ecological model affect outdoor time in children. So that suggests that intervention should be trying to aim at multiple levels of influence rather than just focusing on the child or just focusing on the parents. I think if our results are confirmed in other studies, it would suggest that strategies to promote outdoor time in children from these minority population may need to be tailored according to gender. And then the other thing for future research is that in our study, we looked at the language spoken at home. And so this is one indicator of acculturation, but there are many other indicators as well. One that you mentioned already in the interview, looking at immigrant generation, so first versus second or third generation, research could also look at how strongly the people have maintained their culture. So not just the language, but also the cultural practices.
Okay, well, on behalf of the Journal for Physical Activity and Health, I'd like to thank you and your co-authors for conducting a fascinating study. And we wish you well in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.